Good evening. It's been a interesting week. I really, I'm not even sure like how it happens. Gonna the latest thing that I read is our government's gonna cut funding to National Park Service, which I'm pretty sure takes an act of Congress. Like these plots of land that have been enshrined to preserve our ecological heritage, so that future generations can observe big rocks and outcroppings and maybe spend the night out in the wilderness watching the sky, something that doesn't happen in cities because you can't see the stars when you're in a city that's well lit. That's not to say you can't see stars, but it's not as many. You can't see nearly as many.
I think this past 6 months has proven that the news source, like what is called news, will report anything uncritically with no pushback. In that there was just a story like this fucking moron was saying, "Oh, I'm gonna open up Alcatraz." Like, first off, no, he's not. That's not gonna happen. Like, Alcatraz is not going to be turned into a prison.
Dude, that place has been falling apart for so long that they
Exactly.
haven't allowed tours of it in decades.
Oh my god.
Not to
It's
mention that, like, there was a time when they used the place and they could just like dump whatever they wanted to into the San Francisco Bay. That's not possible anymore. Like, even if they wanted to, what are they gonna do with all that shit and piss and trash?
I mean, I I know I clown on the dude pretty much constantly, but I think he's really losing his mind. In that Alcatraz. When's the last time you've heard about fucking Alcatraz, bro? I think dude has
I
dementia
mean,
or like
there was that movie with Sean Connery
The
and Nick
Rock.
Cage, The Rock.
That was in the nine. That was like about 30 years ago, bro. Sif. Hate to tell you, we're old. That's pushing 30 years.
I know that's why it's funny. The last time the that Alcatraz was socially relevant, Sean Connery was physically capable of running around a movie set.
Oh, like
Nick Cage was still young when that movie was made. Like, I'm pretty sure that movie wouldn't you couldn't even make that movie now because the facility is just falling apart.
so. I never actually read the Project 2025 document. I just assumed they're trying to be like Nazis or whatever. I'm like, oh, we didn't kill all the Nazis, so they're trying to make a resurgence. And they're not the best and the brightest. Let's be clear. We are not dealing with the best and the brightest here. So I'm looking at what's happening, and like their calculations were all wrong in that I think they thought there were way more black people in America than there are. I think they really thought that a lot of black people were like, I think they thought that there was just like 10 million black people sitting in prison just waiting to be put to work. And like, if that wasn't the case, I think they thought that they were going to like round up a bunch of people, whether it was Mexican, like immigrants or people who looked enough like immigrants that somebody claiming to be an ICE agent could run up on them and nobody around them would defend them. Like
I can't
if
remember the
some
name of
if
the guy, but he's like a fashion designer. He looks like he's from Europe. He got sent to the that Supermax Cedo
yeah,
or Copto or
yeah,
whatever.
it's happening to white people now.
Yeah.
But the issue is if it happens to a white person, everybody around is going to be much more likely to like instantly defend and be like, that's not an illegal immigrant because people are racist and they assume that all illegal immigrants look a certain way. So it's like everybody needs to be defending against ICE regardless of what happens. But it's one of those things Americans will step in if they think a white person is getting wronged. Like it's not just white people, but they're very they're definitely quicker to step in if a white person is getting wronged in their mind than if it's any other person, especially a white woman. Like a white woman could have done some horrible shit 5 minutes ago, but if she starts crying, Americans are like conditioned to instantly do whatever that white lady's tears demand.
So
It's crazy.
last night I watched a news report of this old Asian couple that their house got raided because they had a person staying in like they had a rental situation. Somebody was staying at their house and distributing propaganda, and so ICE raids their house. And like apparently the guy who's in charge of immigration, the immigration czar, he was on the news and talking about how he wants this deportation thing to function like Amazon, and yet they like there were no financial transactions related to this guy for like over a month. He had been gone for over a month, and of course like you know if someone leaves their address, Amazon finds out. They're not going to send the package to the wrong place. And here's this quiet neighborhood basically getting swatted. There's no sense to any of it. They're not doing it like with any intelligence. Well, there's some kind of intelligence, just not high functioning intelligence.
Well, I mean, what I was getting at is that even though they're doing it without any intelligence, they can't do it at a scale that they thought they could. They don't have the
Oh
capacity.
yeah.
There's not that many people. There's not that many criminals. There's not, and what they were trying to do is undercut private sector industry and like go in and replace it with a bunch of prisoners as if it's like slavery 3.0. And so that's where they thought they were going to get away with that shit, but it's not fucking working. And so
Yeah.
it's like the calculations they made about what they were going to do with the rhetoric and with the labor force, it was all a huge miscalculation. And on top of that, now they've put tourism and international migration at a risk in terms of legal migration. Like nobody's trying to fucking come here. And then FIFA might not even hold the event here now.
Yeah.
And so it's very possible that FIFA doesn't hold the event. And so, oh my God, did you hear what happened with Yemen?
No, I did not actually.
So this is not tangential. It's directly related. So Israel decided to attack Yemen, and they were like, "Oh, we're attacking a fucking Houthi base at the airport," and so
Oh, it looks like they just attacked the capital of Yemen.
yeah, and so in doing that, bro, Yemen is like 40 million people. They're not going to win, and so they just started a war they can't win. And Yemen is like, we're going to fight, and we're not going to we're not going to take this shit. So this is like the end. We're looking at the end of the war. Capitalism's dying, and I felt it the other night. Something I was up at like 2 a.m, and I'm like, man, I wonder if like one of those motherfuckers just like died or something. I feel like something's awesome, but I realized capitalism is dying, bro. Like all these tech bros are no longer in safe haven jobs. They're not doing the same shit that the people who used to give them equity and like give them over inflated salaries are cutting them out. So it's basically like the oligarchs are left. There's AI that's not this. Let me ask you, when's the last time capitalism waited till something was mature enough and ready to push to market and didn't push it before it was premature? Yeah, exactly. That doesn't happen. So it was like at the least it was the fucking iPad or the iPhone or some shit that's like over 15, over like 20 years ago now. Some shit that was actually mature and ready for the market. Like capitalism hasn't done that since iPhone or the iPod, maybe three,
No,
four,
iPod Touch.
iPod Touch. Yeah, that's about
Because there was only
fourth
like
generation.
it was the first generation. It was preceded iPhone, and it was complete when it arrived. It didn't, and they couldn't. There wasn't anything to upgrade except add a phone to it.
Yeah, capitalism
It
doesn't do
was
that
it
anymore.
was the first touchscreen iPod, like fully touchscreen with apps iPod, mini computer in the hand. It was ready to go. It was a fully functioning computer, and
And
the only thing it missed was the phone.
I dare say that wasn't capitalism, and it was coincidental
I
that it
actually
was
think
like
it was
Steve
actually it was
Jobs.
Steve Jobs totally saying we need this now and it's ready and you guys are gonna love it, and he was right.
I think, and even then, I
But I
think
don't.
his thing is like more of a guy wanting to like manipulate people and technology to his whim more than actually wanting to move society forward. Steve Jobs was like a self-centered douchebag and he didn't care about capitalism. He didn't really care about technology. So this is, I
I
mean,
think that he had a certain idea of that computing didn't have to be the way that everyone told us,
exactly, that's what I'm saying.
and
He
so
wanted to manipulate it to his whim. That's
yeah,
exactly what I'm
he
saying.
wanted a different type of computing or experience. He wanted it to be focused on different things than, constantly typing. And I think to a lesser degree that that kind of software culture emerged really briefly for like 10, maybe 15 years, where there was really creative centric software. Unfortunately, it was really expensive software, but a lot of that software was, if you spent the $1,500 to buy the actual suite of software, it was yours. You didn't have to plug into the internet. You didn't have to have a dongle. You didn't have to run a subscription for the freaking $1,000+ software that you're running to make money with your business. You bought a license, and it was yours until you were desperate enough to upgrade to the next version of the software. Usually because it required an actual hardware upgrade, not like, and I'm not talking about some like nominal like $500 or $1,000, $2,000 upgrade. I'm talking like a $20,000 to $50,000 desk plus converters plus a clock plus all the other shit to make it run, so you can run a single digital cable into the next room through like 8 feet of sound dampening material, and then track an entire orchestra. But those days are gone. Like straight up gone. You can't even buy like Pro Tools anymore. You buy the hardware, but that you still have to get a subscription.
I think it's very clear that capitalism peaked when ownership ceased to exist. Like
Yeah.
there's no longer, everything became leases, even
Yeah.
down to Xboxes started to become leases. Like that's why modding them voided the warranty. It's like you're
Yeah.
actually leasing
Yeah.
your hardware. So I think we can definitively say capitalism has not only peaked, we can mark when it peaked with certain things such as like um LOL lifetime warranties.
Well, it is a warranty for the lifetime of the product, but the product has a manufactured time to live of only like 1,000 hours.
Yeah, that's new speak. That's capitalist newspeak, bro. It used
Yeah.
to just mean lifetime. Lifetime used to mean fucking lifetime.
Yeah.
Like straight up. Cause now there's companies that existed when lifetime meant lifetime that are like they make, washers or brackets or some obscure fucking thing that is needed in some industry that like nobody knows about but is thriving for decades and decades because they have a whole like a corner on one specific part, and like those companies still have lifetime warranties, but like you don't know them by name because they don't care if you know them by name
Oh,
because they
even if you
have their
did
little
know them by
niche.
name, good luck like getting the warranty validated because they can't
No, they
verify.
still validate it.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
Those companies
but you've
still
got to be
validate.
able to
They
get that thing
absolutely
out of
still
there.
validate
Like
it.
I know that like there are components that have like indescribably deep warranty service, but you also have to be able to get that thing to the manufacturer.
Which again, that's what I'm
That's the
saying.
hard part.
There are those there are companies that still exist that are like family companies that work on, like I said, it's like one little part, and it's like for it would be for like trucking or for like assembling
Oh,
ovens or something
actually,
very
I know
very
some.
niche.
I've got something that has, I think, a really impressive warranty. I got to double check here.
Issue being those companies were around before capitalism peaked, and that's where it was like that's you had to have that type of like, do you remember when they had like a pizza delivered in 30 minutes or it was free? Fucking bro, shit used to be way different, like when Maytag and like there's like when Sears existed. Sears basically was like, I mean, I guess it still technically kind of does, but not to the scale it used to. But when it was like an organization that was sending out catalogs every week, they had lifetime warranties basically on most of their shit if you bought it. But it was like under the impression that Sears was going to be open forever because they had been open for like 100 years at that point. So it's like there's a point where like RCA and Sears and fucking Sony, there's like a bunch of companies that have been around for so like Nintendo. Nintendo's not going away. Um, but it's like people don't realize Nintendo's been around since the fucking 1800s. So it's like on the one hand, Nintendo always feels like it's ahead of the curve, but that's because they've been here before all the curves started becoming quicker and quicker between cycles, and they were the ones that like Atari didn't quite survive. Like they're technically still around. Sega, it's still around ish, but what there's no
Sega's
Sega
a
system.
yeah. They're like they're a intellectual
They're a
property
gaming
owner. They
company.
make they own games. They make games.
But that's not the same as Sega when it was a company that made gaming
Yeah,
systems.
that's true.
A gaming company that makes gaming systems is not the same as one that just makes games. One that just makes games is a studio.
Yeah.
And so this is where I mean, like, we've seen Sega peak, we've seen Atari peak, we've seen Nintendo not do anything insanely
Nintendo is extremely conservative.
right. And that's where in their
Like
conservative approach, they've weathered all of this shit. So
Nintendo's unique because their games are actually fun to play, like repeatably. Like you can suck at Mario, but it's still fun. Metroid has a great story. Zelda has a great story. I think that what Nintendo's doing is smart. Where when they release new hardware, it's basically like 2 or 3 or 4 generation old technology, but it's completely stabilized by that point, and so they can bring products to market that are mature. They can bring you
so
displays that are affordable now, finally, but are still plenty good, and the battery technology is fantastic by the time they actually bring their product to market, and
I
so
think
they can optimize for that environment.
the reason being they're a gaming company that just happens to work in hardware.
Yeah,
It just happens to work in video games. They started in fucking 1889 making car games. So
yeah.
it's like they are a gaming company before they are a video gaming company. Every
I mean, isn't a
video
video
game
game just
company
a
can't say
series of
that.
sliding cards that flash in front of us rapidly? And
I mean, a
that's
lot of
really
them
reductive. I don't want to
are
reduce it to
card
that.
based, but I mean in terms of like they were making games before computers
Yeah,
existed.
yeah.
So that's where I mean like they're not a digital gaming company. They are a gaming company first, digital gaming just happens to be one of their medium.
Yeah.
And so that's where I mean, like, it's super easy to look at Nintendo as a video game company, but that's incorrectly reductive in a way that then misunderstands why they still exist and why they've beat all the cycles in ways that Sega and fucking Atari weren't able to. And that's exactly my point, is like, if Nintendo were just a video game company, they would not have survived the cycles that they
Oh no,
did
no,
in the
not at all.
ways that they did.
No, no. That's why every like Neo Geo system is now available on other gaming consoles, or every other Neo Geo game is available on other gaming consoles. Because whatever they were doing, it wasn't enough. Like Sony, they were. I think they're smart. I think that they tried to have a walled garden early on, and that didn't work. But they had enough like what are they called, like flagship titles that kept people coming back. Like they have, Gran Turismo is an extremely successful series because it's got a really fantastic driving physics engine. Um, and I think we're at the point now where like any gaming studio that makes something interesting, unless it's a flagship title, like I don't think anyone expects Halo to appear on a PlayStation, but everything else is probably available on cross-platform. And if it's not cross-play, then it's not like is it even a AAA MMORPG or whatever the fuck they are these days, like big shoot 'em up. Like I'm pretty sure that like Fortnite if you can play it on one system, you can play people on other systems.
Yeah, it's definitely crossplay.
Like that I'm pretty sure that has to be the standard by now. Like and,
No, I mean, you would think it is, but this is like where they're getting closer to it being the standard only because um
like Epic and
Microsoft
Galaxy of
isn't.
Games.
Well, it was like Microsoft wanted to make, they want to challenge Nintendo and Sony at the same time, but the only way they can actually do that is if they have Sony's catalog.
Yeah.
And so that's where they got stuck in a corner where, as you're saying, there's this expectation that everything should be crossplay. But if Microsoft's like, oh, we don't want anybody to go in Sony's ecosystem, then we're only going to have crossplay with PC. And
Yeah.
so that's the way
Yeah.
it was for a lot of shit for a long time. And now they opened up the ecosystem because they had to, only because that's where they were trying to challenge Nintendo. But then Nintendo's like, okay, we can do crossplay too. So it's like Nintendo started doing crossplay, but in a way that keeps people in their system because they have like good hardware
Yeah.
in their ecosystem rather. And they have those flagship titles like the Zelda franchise is never going to go away.
The,
Mario's
the
never
only
going to go
thing I like
away.
about the Xbox ecosystem is the controller. Like I don't even care about like the Xbox game. I like Halo, but I'm not going to play Halo endlessly. That's just not my style. I think that's why like the end route the route always leads to a PC, because then you get to choose your hardware, your interface, right down to like the type of keys for specific key groups. Weighted mice.
Well, on that note,
Extreme polling rates.
I think games, if if they tried to make them whole instead of trying to do the DLC approach, it would be a move back towards better games in that it's not about the length of the game so much as the experience for the price has to be congruous to make someone happy. Like if I have fun in a game, but it's not long enough and it's not enough fun to justify what I paid for, I'm not gonna enjoy. Like I'm not gonna have a good experience, even though I had fun. And so
Yeah.
that's the big
Yeah.
battle that all these games have to deal with. And so that's where I'm looking at it
No,
like,
that's a very keen observation. I was just thinking as you were talking about it, I was just thinking about how when I play Ace Combat or you know any flying game worth its salt, like there, if I don't feel like I'm about to die because this thing I can't shake this other aircraft, why can't I catch this thing? What's wrong? And it doesn't force me to become better at the game or more precise with my movements, and I'm not talking about like doing a custom configuration for my interface where I attenuate certain axes so that I can be a little bit more ham-fisted. I mean, like, actually get better at the game. If that's not happening, then I'm not going to play it again. And then I just wasted however much time. It's not fun when games are too easy to beat. And they should be able to
yeah,
scale
there's
up. They should give you that kind of anxiety of like, whoa, oh, whoa, hold on, this is happening too fast. And if it doesn't, then what is it even there for?
there's a range where it shouldn't be too easy to beat, but it also can't not feel like you are
Yeah, it can't be
making
insurmountable.
progress.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to be able to like at least feel like you're moving forward a little bit, even if a level takes like a dozen attempts and you finally get it, but then you finally you say, wait a second, I can do that better, and then you go back and you do it better. That's like the reason is once you figure out like how to make the speed, not necessarily speed run, but how to get through without getting you know tagged too many times, or how to get through with all of your tokens or coins intact, or whatever it is that you're trying to hold on to. Like, that feeling is that's the reason I play games. It's because I could find that you find your gaming self, and it's like better than you want it to be better. You always want to be better at the game, to see the input faster, to recognize what's going on quicker, and to have that like millisecond faster reaction time. Sometimes that's really what it is, like especially if you've anybody who's ever worked with an old keyboard that has a buffer built into it, or worked on an older operating system where there is a software based buffer. You can't mash keys like you can now. Like nowadays, if you mash your keyboard with a game that can utilize all those keys, it'll register all of that stuff. But there was a time when if you hit two keys, it was like a coin toss whether one was going to be like accepted as input, or the other one and the other rejected, or vice versa. You just didn't know.
Well, and that's how a lot of the more advanced players would then spam moves like the fireball. Instead of doing the whole motion, they would just hold down diagonal,
Yeah,
because then it would like input both things at once, and the computer didn't know, or the CPU didn't know what was happening, and would just think it would take the closest um valid input, and it would be like a fireball. So it's like, once I started learning that people were doing things like that, then I stopped caring as much about playing other people in arcade or online settings, because it's like you never know if somebody's using some exploit where it's like,
I
it's
remember.
one thing if it's built into the game, but if it's like because they're breaking some sort of mechanic, it's like, that's not fun anymore.
So I remember going to a Team Fortress LAN party one time, and throughout the night, you just kept hearing people like shriek, be like, "Ah, they got me! Where were you?" And finally, it was down to like the last two dudes, and everyone was like huddled around one of these screens. These were beige boxes with, 20-pound monitors, and I was fortunate enough to be standing behind the guy with the knife, who had been just sneaking around getting everybody. And I realized that he was about to get him, so I, wander around, and the other player turns around, and all you see is this glitch, and he's dead. And everyone was like freaking out because that was like they were stalking each other kind of thing, and it was a baud rate because it was all modems. He's like,
Oh shit.
it was like it came down to the actual polling rate of everyone's modem.
Yeah. Do you remember SOCOM on PlayStation?
Oh yeah,
That
you could get
very
totally
thing.
screwed because of your internet connection in that game.
Yes, if somebody had a much faster internet, it was basically like they were teleporting around the stage.
Yeah,
And that's the type of shit where it was that and Tony Hawk 3 maybe. Is it 3 or 4? But I saw people just like they were obviously cheating in ways where you're like, okay, you just did some 10 million point combo and I've been getting like, 30,000 like 40,000 points. And so the disparity, it's clearly where the people that are doing that don't care about the game. So that's why it's also like once those people are present,
yeah,
it's no longer fun
yeah.
because
It's
then
like a fungus. It's like athlete's foot.
yeah.
You never want to wear those shoes again. As soon as they get hot, the next time you put your foot in and they get nice and hot, you take them off and everything's fine. And then about 2 hours later, it's, man, why is my foot itch?
Well, and it's like it's like they're not fooling anybody. I was playing someone in chess and they were obviously using um a fucking computer to like see what moves would be the best to then like not make any mistakes. And so then I started playing chess 960, which is basically like it puts all the pieces in a random place every single game. It's never in the same spot.
Yeah.
And suddenly they didn't know what the fuck to do. So I'm like, okay, you thought like, and what's funny to me is like I don't understand, because I understand the motivation, but it's like, do the people there must be something where the people who are doing it think that they're getting away and think that they're tricking people, which is why I had to,
So
switch it up.
on that, I've been this week. I learned of a guitar player, an Instagram guitar player, who made this whole series of videos of him essentially performing other people's music, but not providing any attribution, or if they did, it was buried so deep that nobody was going to see it, and didn't pay anybody for this, and was selling transcribed music. They were selling their music. Like, hey, here's how you play it. And so this guy gets found out, and there's a little bit of backlash from the gatekeepers of guitar music journalism. But the people that were affected, they were all like, "Man, I hope you become a better person and don't steal people's stuff." But whatever. And they all move on, and they're all working together now to re-release their music, working with the other people that were affected by this, and just ignoring him completely. But the interesting thing about this is this guy had managed to land like an endorsement deal with a pretty decent guitar company, and literally overnight this guitar disappeared for sale from the internet. Like, I think the only place you can find them now is on the used market, because you can't buy a new one anymore. So a product got blacklisted because somebody was cheating and making it up, faking it.
It's terrible.
It's crazy. Like, and I get it. There's like this performative aspect of music videos where it's like, yeah, they're faking it anyways. But he was really faking it. Not just faking, but like faking his own compositional skill level.
Because then it's
Like, what's the motivation for doing that? Like,
right, like
they can't. There's no way that anyone's going to be able to keep that up, because at some point they get enough attention that everything they do is going to be scrutinized, and then lo and behold, this is what happens. They lose their endorsements, their official, like, their signature instrument is like blacklisted from the new guitar market. I never thought that I would ever see a product get blacklisted like that, just like that.
And I mean, and the whole fake it till you make it thing, it's obviously
It's an insidious culture.
right. It's obviously a major part of what's happening, but I also think that there's an entire generation of people between the boomers and the zoomer, like I guess multiple generations that don't know why they did anything. And so they're not able to justify not cheating to the kids or not using AI to the kids because they never really reflected or did any consideration of why they were doing the things they did. And it was like, oh, I'm gonna go to college and get a job and get married and get a house. And like everything just worked out and they never had to even think about it. And so they just did all these things, not knowing why they're doing any of them. And so now when a lot of the parts are being co-opted, they can't explain to the kids why they need to do these things because they just they kind of zombied their way through it. I'm confident that a lot of people are going, I mean, they already are having had crises, but it's like you're starting to see a lot of people, if they're not getting fired, they're quitting like tech jobs or jobs that aren't fulfilling because let's face it, they're not doing anything that's going to actually leave an impact, and everything they're doing basically makes them lost to history because of their boss. And I think once these people realize it, they also realize they've sacrificed their families and their friend circles to basically prop somebody else's legacy up in history. And then they're like, oh, fuck, what do I do now? And then they leave these tech companies and go like become a yoga teacher or some shit. So it's like, I see it's not just anecdotal at this point, and it's not just people I've seen, but it's happening at such a scale that that's where I'm saying like capitalism is having a reckoning in that it's no longer, there was a period where it would pay people enough to go along with it. It was like if you could get a house and you could get 2 cars or 3 cars or how many cars you want, like, and if you wanted a new car, you could go get a new lease and it wasn't going to take all of your finances. There were those periods. And so there are people who are exposed to a form of capitalism that I don't blame them for being loyal to that form of capitalism if it still existed, but it doesn't exist anymore and it only exists in their minds. And so that's why I'm like, having lived at the tail end of it and having lived at the tail end of gay people having to be in the closet, being able to come out, but now having the prospect of having to go back in the closet, I'm seeing like how capitalism has co-opted rights and co-opted the notion of rights as if they are a zero-sum game, because if there's rights, then there's only so many rights, and we have to treat them like a fucking non-renewable resource. So the way that those things have then infiltrated our philosophical approach to justice and social justice, that's why people then believe the bullshit that someone should get an education for the sake of getting a job. Education should purely be about self-enrichment. Period. Full stop.
Yeah, if you
Nothing
want to get a
else.
job, go to a technical school or go to
Exactly.
a trade
Exactly.
school or
Go to
someplace
trade
that'll
school.
actually provide the kind of information one needs to develop a career in a field.
Exactly. So this is where that rhetoric about like, oh, you're going to college to get a better no,
I went to college to read a
nope.
bunch of books, like literature, not. I can read technical manuals all day long on my own damn time. But to be in an environment where you can read literature and then talk to people about it in an environment where like discussion is encouraged, that's fucking rare. Find me any place like where you can get 20 people to show up at the same time, regularly, multiple times a week to talk about romance literature. It's a university. That's like the only place. It's not happening at your local community college. Side note, apparently last year the United States represented 33% of Timu's uh, market share, and which is equal to the rest of the world minus Germany, Japan, United Kingdom, France, Canada, Brazil, and Australia. I'm
Oh
not
my
even.
God.
I'm not
This
even
is gonna
sure
be
where
amazing.
China like fits into it. Like, do the Chinese people even buy stuff from Timu? I mean, I'm from this side. I don't think they do. They can just get it direct. Why would they order from Timu? They can just call up their cousin and say, "Hey,
Why would
man."
they want it?
I
They're
know
not
that's the other thing. Why would they want that crap?
like when you're
33% of their business came from the United States, though, to the tune of $47 billion. Oh no, that's how much it rose over between 2023 and 2024. According to Visual Capitalist, e-com is going to be the biggest industry by 2040. It's going to be responsible for $20 trillion of the global economy.
so I call bullshit on that thing. I
Yeah,
gotta
I'm
call
not sure how I
bullshit.
feel about this either. AI software 4.6 trillion, cloud services 3.4
So
trillion, electric vehicles 3.2 trillion. That's really optimistic, guys.
you're telling me that the AI software is more valuable than the fucking semiconductor hardware that runs the AI? I don't think
Yeah,
so.
or the
No,
space industry.
no. No, no,
Yeah,
no. These
that's
people are full of shit. They're
the
trying to like, I mean, not to say that they don't know what they're talking about. What they're doing here is trying to hype up AI because the bubble is about to burst and they're trying to get as many fucking suckers as they can to like invest and keep that bubble going as long as possible
I
because
do
it's
think that
so close to
e-commerce is
bursting.
going to be big, but I'm not.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's the future. But AI
Yeah.
software, I don't know.
E-commerce is the future and the present.
Yeah, but like the AI part, that kind of has me asking my own series of questions. Like, what do they really think it's a solution to? What's the problem here that needs solving with AI software? Is it
Because then it's like I don't buy that that's gonna be the most valuable because nobody is returning fucking profit
yeah.
on the AI tools. They're returning profit by cutting workers and replacing them with AI, but that's only in short term because it hasn't fallen apart yet. They're gonna be able to coast with AI until the shit falls apart. Then they're gonna have to go hire some humans back to fix whatever fell apart that they didn't know. And so seeing all these cycles play out, um,
Guys, we need an actual senior developer. The AI spat some code out. We don't know what it does, but it did something.
I mean, bro, that's how every fucking machine learning model is. It's never one to one
No.
because if it was one to one, it would just be a reactionary machine that's like the equivalent of a soda machine. Like you push a button and a Coke comes out every single time. You push that button, a Coke comes out because it's a one-to-one input and output. Whereas with machine learning, when they train these models, you can't be like, oh, I want you to do this thing as you're training over the course of a million different commands and get it to be one to one from the input to the training output. And that's why increase as these models increase in complexity, it becomes more difficult to go in and air quote fix them because you don't know, like if something goes wrong, you don't know where it went wrong. It's like impossible. In the same way that when someone has brain trauma, it's like we can try to isolate it and try to help the brain heal in those areas, but that doesn't even mean it's localized to a specific place, and the physical trauma could just make it so that the electrical circuits aren't firing in a way that results in organization. And it's not like just a localized, like a localized trauma in the hippocampus means you can't smell anymore. Like, no, that's not it. Sometimes on average it works out like that, but not always. And so this is also where I think right wingers have a hard time understanding how science works, in that it's almost never one to one. There's always going to be some sort of like room for error. If not that, it's going to be that something in the system is too complex to make it so that you can just get a one-to-one response.
But then also the cognitive dissonance of having to reflect on every error every time we get an output that's wrong. That's also a positive result because it tells us that something is happening, and that whatever was the wrong output, that's not the route to go. Sometimes we still proceed. Oh, so to circle back, I found a product that was released in 1858 that, by every right, was mature when they brought it to market. It is the mason jar. It's a glass jar with a screw-on lid. The ball jar, manufactured up in Muncie, Indiana. That's a licensed mason jar. But that thing was, when that was brought to market, that was it, and that thing hasn't really changed in, oh man, that's like a lot. It's like 150 years. A glass jar, though. That's a real product that was brought to market, mature, hasn't changed. I think even hammers have changed since they were introduced, 10,000 years ago or whatever.
Right? I can name at least 3 different types of hammers.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head without Googling.
Yeah. Fuck, even within the claw hammer family, there's like a dozen plus, probably more types of hammers. Yeah, mason jar. Wait, the marble. I bet the glass marble was, when that was brought to market, it was mature.
Yeah, I mean, but then again, yeah, there's also only a small window of when things were like, quote, brought to market in the first place. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
people just existed and did shit, and like industrialization made everyone think that they needed to do stuff at scale only so they could like get back to the life that they had when it was like pre-industrialization.
Isn't that what automation is supposed to do for us? It's supposed to automate the job so that people can get back to doing the things that they should be doing. But even though it doesn't work out like
Right.
that, we can automate many tech jobs, many tech jobs. It just takes a while to develop the algorithm to replace that person's task, and it can be done at a high rate of efficiency. We all know about John Henry. You know, it's just what are people going to do if their tech jobs go away? Like you said, I mean, there can only be so many yoga instructors. The world doesn't need more Reiki practitioners.
I mean, but people don't need to be like determining what they do based on what the world needs. They should be determining it based on what they want to do. None of them have thought about that ever, and is my point. That's my entire point. Everybody's been doing what the world is like, oh, this is what you do next. This is what
Oh
you
yeah, the behavior
fucking
of filling
turned
a
18.
niche. Yeah.
You just graduated high school. Now you go to college. Now you pick a major, and then you get a job. Like, most of these motherfuckers haven't stopped and thought, like, what do I actually want to do? Like, what do I enjoy doing as a human being with my days? Like, nobody's thought to stop and like think about that for like more than, I mean, a fucking, like, at all, like, let alone any significant period of time. Like, nobody's doing it for 20 minutes, like, not 20 seconds. So that's what I mean. This is something that, because everyone has been trained to be like, oh, you need to figure out how you live your life so that you make money and like are valuable to society. Like, that's completely fucked up to have humans determine how they're going to spend their days that way.
Well, isn't that why
It's,
so many businesses fail? Because
oh
somebody's trying to
yeah,
fill a niche instead of trying to do the thing that they're really passionate about.
absolutely. And I think that's why capitalism has come to an end, because so many companies became that instead of people being passionate about something that they're into or they built or whatever, and like starting there instead of trying to find what other people are passionate about and then trying to fill that. And so it's two completely different approaches. And like, pre I think it just happens to coincide with the microchip revolution, but it's right around basically when celebrity starts to result in money. And it's not just sports, it's not just film, it's not just marketing deals. There's like this culmination of celebrity and wealth. And I want to say some of it is like money laundering at that, because then you look at like, what the fuck is Paris Hilton? And I don't mean that like negatively towards her, as like she's a pariah on this thing. She's coincidental. Is like, she's the first one that comes to mind, and she's actually done some shit with her empire, air quote. But it was like, she already came from a rich family, but
Oh,
then they
she
basically
moved into
like,
a 14,000 square foot mansion in Beverly Park in February of 2023 because she and her husband felt that their previous home was too small for their growing family.
I mean, that's like, that was gonna happen whether we knew about her
Of
or not.
course, of
But
course.
they ended up basically making her famous because they wanted to, and in the process, it was like to whitewash her reputation, because her ex-boyfriend put out that porn without her consent, which is what they said. But now we're like, who knows? Maybe they were in on it the whole time. But it's like, that whole thing was basically to like make her not look so slutty. And then suddenly the Kardashians got a sex tape out, and now people are like getting rich for being famous.
For amateur porn.
No, that's that was that was just
Those
part of the process. That's not what made either one of them wealthy. They were like, their families were rich before these things happened. Then they both had sex tapes, but then they both started having reality shows for being famous.
oh boy.
You see what I'm saying? Like it sounds stupid to say, but that's exactly what happened. And so when we're in that period, there was also reality shows for people who were not famous, like the Jersey Shore people. They became famous, but when they started, they were not. And so there, I think reality television bears a lot of the responsibility in modern times, but something happened between like Babe Ruth and MTV, and it was like it was already in motion. And my final guess is like the same money laundering that's happening in or had been happening in art. I think that was what was happening with movie studios, and in the process it was basically like you can launder money through someone's personality by like propping up their brand or whatever. You know, if it's like a comedian, like say Kevin Hart, somebody somebody could buy a bunch of Kevin Hart albums, and then if like Kevin Hart's like, oh, I'll give you 10% of the profits on the like 5 years in the future, then suddenly it's a great investment to buy a bunch of Kevin Hart albums if you can get that kind of deal. And it's like those types of deals aren't really possible as much anymore, but that's the exact type of deal that Drake had. So it's like, in terms of, it sounds like a weird deal when I say it like that, but that's exactly the type of shit that Drake stuck in, or what Taylor Swift was stuck in before she re-recorded all her albums. Which this is where I'm like, there are some genius things that people have done. Like, you don't have to like their fucking music, but you have to respect what they did. Taylor Swift and Frank Ocean finessed the fucking music industry in ways that will forever impact it from that point on, which is why nobody's able to really do it again. It's because it's like the things that they were able to do, it made the entire industry look like fucking morons, but it also exposed them for being exploitative and taking talent and trying to. It's like, again, if people love Taylor Swift, the industry exploits Taylor and it exploits the people that love her. And in the process, they get all the money. And Taylor, she got the adoration of her fans, but she was losing a shitload of money off of every sale because these motherfuckers were like, oh, we helped make you. We're going to own part of you. We're going to own part of you forever. Well, nope. She's going to go record her own shit and take her body back, take her
And
body of music back.
I,
And she did. She took that shit back.
she told Spotify what the terms were. She told them how much what her cut was going to be, what their cut was going to be, and then they acquiesced. Nobody else did that. Every other band or artist that was like holding out, they went on Spotify after she did her thing, and I don't think any of them were able to negotiate what she did. But Spotify's a weird place, and I don't think it's any different from the music industry that it kind of supplanted, replaced. The
Oh
people
no,
the
not at
people
all.
that got in early are like grandfathered in. They've got so many followers, likes, views, whatever, that they're always going to be ranked high. And short of spending oodles and oodles of ducats to get exposure, broad marketing campaign, which isn't a guaranteed return anyways. Like, I mean, in that regard, a place like Spotify is already essentially dead.